Good evening and welcome to episode 10 of Talking Trash. I'm James Langfield.
I'm Claire Abraham.
And I'm Bohan.
And thanks very much for joining us again. Before we kick things off on our top five list and our preview of tonight's No Mercy event, the Talking Trash podcast, that's myself, Bohan and Claire included, would just like to send our condolences, our thoughts and our prayers to the family of Bobby the Brain Heenan. And a rest in peace to Bobby the Brain Heenan, one of the greatest commentators and managers that has ever graced our screens. I know him a little bit from watching.
The greatest manager that's ever graced their screens. Even Paul Heyman thinks it, you know?
Exactly. It is a loss to the wrestling community. There will only ever be one Bobby the Brain Heenan. We'll never have another one like him. So to all our listeners and humanoids alike, R.I.P. Bobby the Brain Heenan, you will be missed. But moving on to a positive note, we are discussing our top 5 baby faces within the world of professional wrestling. Baby faces, or faces for short, is a wrestling term for the good guys, the guys you cheer for, the guys you want to see win the battles against the bad guys or the heels. So we're going to be running from our 5s to our number 1s, all those good guys that you want to see win those matches in the world of professional wrestling. Tonight we'll kick things off with Bohan. Bohan, who was your number 5 face?
So my number 5 is one that I doubt anyone else will actually have on their list, but my number 5 starts a theme that kind of runs right the way through my list. My number 5 is Tommy Dreamer. Honestly, when I looked at this list and I thought about putting it together, Tommy Dreamer did come immediately to mind. I mean, I love Dreamer. Maybe not a candidate for number 1, but definitely makes the list. Tommy Dreamer was the perennial babyface that just handed to him over the entire course of ECW. He was a guy who was always right there in line for the belt, but never made it to the front. All that, like, it just, there was something really admirable about the sort of the whole Tommy Dreamer storyline. He never wanted the belt, didn't really need the belt either. The crowd were always on his side. It was great to see Dreamer as the perfect anti-hero, although I suppose he was the closest thing you really get to an outright hero in, like, sort of ECW. Ran well with Raven for a long period of time, had good feuds with people like Stamina. Like, there was everyone that was worthwhile in ECW had some kind of program with Dreamer, and he really knocked it out of the park. But the personal highlight for me is the fact that the guy won the belt once, only to never put it on and to lose it immediately. He's the epitome of the underdog babyface. He's the archetype. He's everything you would like sort of show to someone to explain that type of character. So for that reason, Tommy Dreamer makes it in at number 5. That, and he's just pretty well talented, to be fair. Also, great entrance music, like Man in the Box by Alice in Chains. What a choice.
Oh no, definitely. That was a fantastic tune. Always loved Tommy Dreamer. My everlasting image of Tommy Dreamer is the caning he got from Sandman, and the whole "thank you, sir, can I have another?" Just that turned Tommy Dreamer into that white hot baby face that we all come to love. It was a fantastic feud with the Sandman, and I'll always remember that whole caning episode with him and the Sandman. It was a brilliant match. Claire, who made your number 5?
My number 5 was Bailey. Just like, I feel like women-wise, I was like, I really want to have a female face on my list. And I don't know if it's because of, like, you know, the previous kind of lack of respect that was given to the women's division, but it was kind of hard for me to think, you know, who's a standout babyface. And for me, the only person that really stands out is Bailey. And I don't know if it's because she's almost like a super distilled face. Like, I really can't imagine them turning her heel. Our whole gimmick is just so bubbly, and you know, I think she was on my list for like gimmicks that shouldn't have got over but did. It's just a ridiculous gimmick, and you would kind of think it would only work with kids, but it doesn't. I think most people genuinely like her. You know, she goes out there, she's bubbly, she's fun, the crowd love it, and I just think in the women's division just now, she's like the standout baby face type, and she's just like, oh, I don't want to say cut and paste babyface, but I think like she is just, when you think of babyface, especially in the women's division, Bailey just springs to mind, and obviously I really like her. I like what she does. I like the storyline she's had. And she's kind of got that little kind of scrappy underdog thing going on, which always works really well when you're looking at a babyface gimmick. So yeah, Bailey number 5 for me.
No, I like that choice. I like Bailey. She is a really good baby face. The whole wacky waving inflatable arm tune men is always a nice little gimmick that adds on at the beginning of the entrance, and I just like it. She like I said, there's nothing inherently dislikable about Bailey. So if and when she does turn heel, I don't know how they're going to do it, but it would be interesting to see. But for now, she's a good face. For myself, my number 5. He's been in ICW. We see him a lot around Scottish companies and the independent circuit. He's in TNA as well. My number 5 is Grado. I absolutely love Grado. My eldest daughter, she's 7. She loves Grado. Anytime you're at a wrestling show and you hear Madonna's Like a Prayer, you know you're going to get Grado. Grado comes out dancing, jigging along, has a brilliant interaction with all of his fans. He's just a brilliant face. He has that whole underdog gimmick where you don't think that he should be a good wrestler, but he's pretty good. And he hits his moves. He's always fighting from the underneath. He's always coming back. And I like him. I like Grado. I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice guy. And I just like what he does in the ring as well as outside of the ring. He's just inherently funny, and he does a good job as a face. So for that reason, Grado makes my number 5.
Yeah, no, he definitely has that kind of comic wrestler thing down, and I particularly like him and Colt Cabana together. I think they make a great team when they team up. I think that's a really good choice.
Yeah, no real arguments from me. It's hard to dislike someone who is so fundamentally infectious. Didn't make my list, but he's definitely in the vein of a lot of the guys that I've chosen.
No, fair enough. Moving on from that, we're at our number 4. We'll kick that off with Claire. Claire was usually number 4.
I know a lot of people are not going to like this pick, but I feel like he needs to make the list, and I like him. It's Cena. I know we kind of went through a phase there where everyone was really hating on him because they were sick of him winning and long Super Cena and all that stuff. But I genuinely like Super Cena, and he is like the Bailey of the men's division when it comes to faces. He is just the epitome at the moment of a male face. You know, sometimes he's not fantastic. It's kind of like a few years ago, like he kind of got bored and wasn't working at his best. But when he brings it, he is really, really good. And obviously does all the sort of stuff outside of the ring as well as in the ring, just to make him a kind of super face almost. And yeah, I personally, I know a lot of people still don't like him, but personally I like Cena, and I think he's a really good face.
No, I completely agree with you. That's why he's also made my list. Cena's my number 3, but definitely he made my list as well for pretty much all of the same reasons that you've said there. So I've got nothing really to add to that, but no, I like Cena as well. Like I said, that's why he's on my list. He's at my number 3. My number 4, though, was Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels, people may argue that he was a better heel, but I always liked his face work. His turns always came as swerves when he did go from face to heel, but I always liked his face work. He always worked underneath as a face. He was that white hot baby face when he was a face. Him coming down to the ring on the zip line, his Iron Man match against Brett. All those matches that you just love to watch Shawn win. You'd love to see him go over the bad guy, the heel. Shawn Michaels had some fantastic programs. His program with Jericho, with Shawn Michaels working face and Jericho working heel, fantastic program. Shawn Michaels, for me, is one of the greatest faces that has ever been around, and for that reason, he made my number 4.
Worth noting, one of the few people who, as a face, managed to do what was the unthinkable and drag Psycho Sid to what was actually quite a good match at Rumble 97 as well. So I can see why he's made your list. For me, I struggled with putting Michaels on the list because I always kind of felt like he was more of a tweener in the face. Like he never fully occupied that face ground very much, but I can see why you've put him on your list, certainly.
No worries. Who is your number 4, Bohan?
My number 4, obviously everyone knows that I was really into WCW as a kid. My number 4 was Sting. I couldn't imagine, again, a list of top 5 baby faces and not putting Sting on it. He's a man who's been like sort of a perennial feature of my wrestling life, so to speak. I mean, he was a massive part of WCW. He was WCW, arguably to a large extent. You know, like Sting, like as the Crow Sting, and even as like sort of surfer dude Sting, and the weird sort of blonde crew cut, which never really made sense to me personally, but seemed to really get fans going. I mean, he's a guy whose work has been fantastic throughout the body of it, even when he's been saddled in places where, like, you know, he maybe didn't have that much that they could do with him. Even when he was getting a bit older, he was working in TNA and he was still sort of working to a relatively high standard. In WCW, the man was just a perennial fixture and he was always fun to see. He even like sort of went into that sort of sketchy feud that he had with Empire with the best intentions, made it work. Sting makes my number 4 because he's a guy that frankly can work with most people to a really high standard and was one of the absolute shining spots in what was sometimes quite hard to watch programming with WCW. So, I mean, he's one of those ones that he can make or break a show just by appearing. So he makes my number 4.
No, fair enough. I was thinking about putting Sting in my list, but just because I'm not as up on WCW as you are, Bohan, I couldn't warrant putting him on my list, not seeing the vast majority of his body of work. I couldn't, warrant putting him on my list if I hadn't seen that there, but he was certainly tempting. He almost made my list, but sadly he didn't. Moving on from that, we're at our number 3. Like I said, my number 3 is John Cena, pretty much for all the same reason that Claire said. He's always, he spent most of his career being a face. He had that short period at the beginning when he was a heel, but very quickly went to a face and fan favorite. He's never gone away from that. He's always got the skills on the mic. He's always teased the heel turn. Every once in a while he'll tease that. Even on the mic he mentions it. And it's just, he's a fantastic talker, does a good job in the ring, puts on a good match anytime he goes out. And at a big match he's going to put it up there. And he's a main eventer. And yeah, people don't like him, but I like him. Claire likes him. Bohan's come around to him again. He's slowly turning people around that may have disliked him in the past. But yeah, I like Cena and pretty much all the reasons he made my number 3. So going on from there, Claire, who was your number 3?
My number 3 was DDP. I have been through my love of DDP, I think, a few times before on here. He just does great work. He's a total, easily lovable and likable person. I've been through my love of DDP before, and I know he features on Bohan's list a little bit later on. So I'm not going to overtalk DDP, but on a list of my favourite faces, there was absolutely no way I could leave him off. I just could watch his stuff all the time, and everything he does outside of wrestling as well, I really enjoy. So he had to make my list. So it's DDP number 3 for me.
Fair enough. And Bohan, who is your number 3?
My number 3 is an entry that's certainly going to put butts in seats. WCW reference. My number 3 is Mick Foley, a man who I shed actual tears after meeting because he had been such a big part of, again, my childhood. Like, I've got a signed copy, first edition, which I got at a charity shop and took to get signed. I'd had it for a while of like his first book. Like, I Have a Nice Day. I mean, just honestly, Mick Foley is one of those people in the wrestling business that you talk about in the same breath as you talk about the likes of DDP, about what a great human being they are, about all the good stuff they do. But again, it's easy to forget that Mick Foley is a guy who has a great body of work behind him. He's, again, the archetypical, like, sort of underdog babyface, was never really meant to hold belts in WWF at the time. Had great matches at WCW with the likes of Vader. Even if you go right back into the early stuff when he's Cactus Jack Manson and stuff like that, there's not really a spot. Pardon me. There's not really a spot. On Mick Foley's like sort of resume that isn't that great. Personally, for me at the very least, I've always really enjoyed seeing him. He's someone that's always willing to give a lot more than you would expect out of talent, and he's always someone who's went above and beyond to prove it. And he's another one of those guys that doesn't fit the archetypical like sort of body type or like sort of age range or anything really like that. He's just a fabulous talent that ultimately succeeded through sheer force of will and natural ability, and that's why he's in at my number 3.
Fun story.
No.
When Bohan met Foley, I was there as well. It was at ICW. It was part of the VIP tickets, and he has a lovely picture of him and Foley. I have a blurry picture of me and someone who could be anyone because he was so excited he could not take a steady picture of me and Foley.
I tried real hard that day. I tried real hard, but I literally couldn't hold my hand still enough to take a photo because I was just so excited that it was Mick fucking Foley. I will never forget that. I am so sorry you don't have the same treasured photo.
Fair enough. I'll probably be the same myself. So, apologies, Claire, for your blurry photo, but you know, things happen. Moving on from there.
To meet him and spoke to him. It's fine. I have the memory.
Exactly. So moving on from there, we are at our number 2 spot. I think I'll kick things off for this one. My number 2 spot is The Rock, not Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but just The Rock. The guy is one of the greatest mic talkers in the world. He hypes his own matches. He hyped the matches. He could put a guy down with a single sentence. He was fantastic as a face. As a heel, he was okay, but the crowd love The Rock. When you hear his music hit, the crowd is going to pop massively. You want to see The Rock win. You want to see a rock bottom. You want to see a people's elbow. You want to see him flash the eyebrow, raise his fist in the air, holding a championship belt. He was an epitome of what a babyface should be. He knew how to work a crowd. He knew when to put in a hope spot, when to put in a comeback, when to hit his finishers, when to do anything he needed to do in that ring. He could tell a story. He was fantastic. And for that reason, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but sorry, not Dwayne The Rock Johnson, just The Rock, because he came back for a bit as Dwayne Johnson. Nobody cares. For me, it's just The Rock. The Rock is my number 2.
He also knew when to backflip. I mean, the man sold a stunner like no one else ever did.
That is very true. His stunner selling abilities were second to none.
Didn't make my list, but on my pre-list list, so I can totally see why you made it onto yours.
No, fair enough. We'll move on to you, Claire. Who was your number 2?
My number 2 was Daniel Bryan. You know, just that quintessential underdog story with Daniel Bryan. Complete and utter shame what's happened that he can't wrestle anymore. I think, you know, it's kind of the same as I was talking about last week with Cody. I think he would have had many, many good years, if not his best years ahead of him, had he not had issues with his health. But the run he did have was phenomenal. I think almost everyone was behind him. You know, when you've got like every single person in an arena chanting, yes, 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 your gimmick, like just so over, and such a testament to like where hard work can get you. Obviously wasn't really seen as a guy who could be at the top by the backstage people, but just the love from the fans and that sheer love of his babyface gimmick and him, and pressure from the fans loving him, essentially getting him to the top. And I just think that makes him one of the best baby faces there's been.
No, I completely agree with you. And you've also successfully taken the wind out of my sails because he was my number 1. But no, for all the same reasons, Daniel Bryan is phenomenal. I might go into a little bit more when we get to our number 1s, but yeah, my Daniel Bryan was my number 1 as well. Bohan, who's your number 2?
My number 2 is the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour. Mine's is Dusty. I mean, who else could it ever have been? As far as it goes for Dusty Rhodes, there's a man who could cut a promo. There's a man who was fundamentally likable. Again, fitting in with the theme of my list, he's not a guy that you look at and you go, "Oh, there's your, world champion for the next 10 years." But it's a man who, on and off, held the belt for the NWA, made it important, worked his arse off in at WCW, tried to make something out of it, even with psychos like Bill Watts running around trying to run stuff. Dusty is the quintessential babyface. He's a man who can cut a promo and stand there and connect with an audience of people in a way that very few people ever managed to do. He's a man who had such great matches in amongst an era full of names that you look at now and you go, how did you manage to stand out in amongst the likes of Ric Flair and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Arn Anderson? And speaking of Arn Anderson and Ric Flair, there's also the fact that he caused a fucking riot when he got locked in a cage with the Four Horsemen. I mean, really, if you want to talk about a babyface, it's all about that emotional connection to someone and wanting to see them go over. No one quite like Dusty Rhodes. He's on my number 2 because there's only one other person I can think that I would ever in this world put above him, but he definitely deserves a space right at the top of that list.
No, fair play to you. I like Dusty Rhodes as well. Dusty Rhodes was fantastic, and he was a brilliant face, and then he moved on and became one of the best trainers that NXT's ever seen, helping guys that we see now put themselves on the map and put themselves out there and get them ready for the main roster. Dusty Rhodes was absolutely amazing, so I can totally see why he made your number 2. Moving on from that, we are at our number 1 spot. As I said, my number 1 is Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, for me, is the epitome of what a face is. He is the guy who you never thought would be a world champion, the guy you wanted to be a world champion, but in the back of your mind you thought, I don't know if he's ever going to do it, but I'm going to cheer for him anyway. I don't care what the authority or what the company is saying. This is my guy. I look at Daniel Bryan and you see him clawing and fighting and toiling and sweating and bleeding for the profession that he loves and the profession that he put his entire life's work into, to make you cheer for him, to make you like him, to make him boo for him when he was a heel. But he's an absolutely fantastic wrestler. His body of work is second to none in terms of his ability. When he came to WWE, in NXT, he pulled it off. He became the US champion when he beat The Miz. Then he goes on and wins Money in the Bank, and then he goes on and cashes that in against the Big Show. And then we start getting the yes chance. And then when the fans start letting that over and they turn him heel, they start into no chance. And when that gets over, he found a way. Nobody thought he ever would in WWE. As they said, he was a B-plus player. Yes, that might have been a gimmick that they used to sell him, but that's what they all thought of him. He was that guy who said, no, I don't care what you say. I'm going to get myself over. The fans know what they want. The fans will tell you what they want. The guy managed to inadvertently hijack a section of a show that he wasn't even directly involved in. Just because the crowd started chanting his name, they had to acknowledge that he was there. Daniel Bryan is the best face that the WWE has ever produced, in my opinion. And there will never be anybody like Daniel Bryan. He keeps saying that, one day he might come back to wrestling if the doctors can clear him. WWE doctors aren't clearing him, but he keeps teasing the fact that he'd like to tap out all the members of Bullet Club. So who knows, maybe we'll see him back at ROH at some point when his contract expires next year. If he does go back to wrestling, hopefully he stays safe. If he doesn't, then he's a fantastic GM, still got the crowd on his side, doing a fantastic body of work. And for all the reasons Claire's included, Daniel Bryan is my number 1.
I mean, I would love to see him wrestle again. Of course I would. I love Daniel Bryan. But from what I know of the medical side of things, he has also had independent information about his medical condition. And there's a part of me that, as much as I would love to see him wrestle again, I don't know if I could watch him wrestle again in good conscience, knowing the medical situation. It puts me in a bit of a tough situation as a fan, knowing that somebody is potentially, putting themselves at risk more than they already do by getting in that ring.
I'd like to believe that the wrestling industry isn't so fundamentally shady that they'll put a guy out there that isn't ready to be out there. But that worry, like you said, is always going to be in the back of my head at this stage, knowing that he talked about having had seizures and stuff like that. It's a big concern. As much as I'd love to see Daniel Bryan back in the ring, I'd rather see Daniel Bryan still alive in his 50s, personally. What happens from this point is really down to him. If he goes back to Ring of Honor, so long as he's fit and so long as he's able and so long as, he's not putting himself at risk, I'm sure he'll enjoy his run. It's whether that is even a possibility or not for me that's up in the air,
No, I can understand that. Like I said, whether or not it happens remains to be seen. You never know. He might decide that he wants to carry on being the GM of SmackDown, or who knows, maybe one day down the road, the WWE doctors decide that he's okay to wrestle, but that remains to be seen. But moving on from there, we've still got 2 more number ones to go. Bohan, let's close out your number one. Who's your number one?
My number one's Thunder got stolen as well, for what it's worth. My number one is obviously you talk about Dusty Rhodes as the quintessential babyface. My number one's the logical sort of evolution of that, and it's Diamond Dallas Page. It's DDP. Again, as a WCW kid, that's one of those figures that's really stuck with me the whole way through. DDP was a guy who started wrestling in his 30s. DDP started doing all of this shit at a time when most guys are kind of pushing towards the main event to get their kind of big run and then end their career. DDP sort of came into the business as a guy who wasn't meant to be successful. He came into the business as a guy who was never supposed to be a world champion. He was too old. He was sort of broken down for parts of sort of his kind of main run, but he was a guy that never let the word no phase him. He's a guy that honestly had an ability to connect with a crowd again on that kind of subconscious level. If you've ever watched any of the old WCW pay-per-views and you watch him enter, you can see the evolution of it as well. If you're looking back, you can see all the fans throwing up the diamond cutter, and it just sort of expanded. Like you talk about Daniel Bryan and the whole yes chance. That's the original yes chance right there. That's where that a lot of that takes root. DDP was a fantastic talent. He innovated a finish. Well, he innovated a modified version of a finish, if we're being really technical, that could be sort of played from any really conceivable sort of pattern, lending the whole Randy Orton thing that we have today. Is honestly one of those guys who had no right to succeed in wrestling, but did through sheer force of will and ability. And he was helped by working with guys like Macho Man Randy Savage. And when Randy lays down on the mat to put someone over, it's a big fucking statement. As it was with Piper and a lot of those guys for that generation, you were only putting somebody over if they were worth it. That's as big a seal of approval as you can get from someone who loved the industry as much as Randy Savage. I'm going to put this guy over. I'm going to send him on his way. We're going to get him sort of pushed the way he ought to be pushed. DDP makes my number one for all of those reasons, and that's without even scratching the surface on what a fucking amazing human being he actually is. But in the pure context of this, there could be no other number one for me. It's DDP every day of the goddamn week.
No, I can understand why you put him there. I can understand why Claire had him on the list. He didn't make my list, like I said, just because I'm not as up on WCW as you guys are. So I didn't get to see his body of work. So I couldn't really want putting on someone on the list who I didn't know that much about, unfortunately. But I can totally see what you have done. Claire, you're the one to close out this week's edition of our top 5. So who made your number one babyface?
I'm so sorry I stole both your number ones. But my number one is Nakamura. I think even if you didn't know him before he came into the WWE, I think for most people, he's a total charisma machine. He just oozes charisma. He's fantastic in the ring. And I think when you first see him, I don't understand if there's anyone out there who doesn't like him. I just don't understand how. He just is so easily likable. He backs it up with extreme skills. The man is so talented in the ring. He's just a complete full package. And I just think he's one of the best faces there is, and it's just so easy to like him. It's not even like he really has to try at it. It's just natural for him. I really enjoy watching him. Always like to see him come out. Great to kind of see the reactions he gets from people. And that's why he made my number one.
No, I can totally understand why he did. Shinsuke Nakamura, like you said, is full of charisma. His entrance music is fantastic. His whole demeanor when he's in that ring is fantastic. His skill set's amazing. So I can totally see why he made your number one. Anything to add about Nakamura, Bohan?
Nakamura has been a favourite of mine for quite some time, realistically, as somebody who also have, like, I consume a lot of product and a lot of different products, and like as someone who was watching a lot of New Japan for a while as well, like I just honestly can't see how, again, anyone could dislike Shinsuke Nakamura. I feel like there's so much to him, there's such a depth of talent and ability there. He is so charismatic, he's weird. And I think that's kind of the unifying theme when you look at baby faces that are really over and really enjoyable. Because you've got to remember, wrestling fans, we're the island of fucking misfit toys, so we are. We're not exactly, you know, the kind of people that everyone picks as number one choice to go out for a drink for and stuff like that. We're a bit odd, we're a bit off kilter, which is why Shinsuke Nakamura connects so deeply with that audience, because he's the persona. He's everyone in that crowd turned up to 11 and shoved together in a blender. Like, he just has such an innate ability to connect with people as well. Even fucking, he's a gift machine is what I call him. Even his entrance, getting in the ring, his mannerisms, how he moves around, there's nothing about the boy that isn't perfect, frankly.
No, that's that. I mean, I can't really echo any more than any of the sentiments there. Everything you said is pretty much what I'd say as well. So we've done our top five for the week, which was our baby faces. We run from 5 to 1. Now we're gonna have a quick preview of tonight's WWE pay-per-view. I guess you can call it, given that it's a kind of a show. It's be on the WWE Network, and tonight is the Raw branded No Mercy event. What are you guys' kind of initial feelings going into it before we run down some of the matches?
So we're maybe at like a little bit of a disadvantage. I was actually talking about, we were over at a friend's last night who's also a wrestling fan, and it was kind of talking about this. We've not actually, this is very unusual for us, we've not actually watched Raw or SmackDown for 2 weeks now. I think what potentially happened is we binged the Mae Young Classic and it was so good that we just couldn't bring ourselves to go back to the crappy main product stuff. So me and Bohan are maybe at like a disadvantage having missed 2 weeks of the run up to it. But I've actually got the card in front of me just now, and roughly how long do we think this pay-per-view is going to be? Like 3, maybe 4 hours? 3?
We have a 3-hour show, yeah.
Yeah, and you've got 1 match on the pay-per-view and 7 matches on the rest of the card. I've got a potential funny feeling here that this is going to be just rammed with guff.
I don't know. Some of the matches do look interesting. I don't think it's be guff. I think we're going to have some good matches out of it. We'll start running down. So
promo sections and stuff, and like highlight reels and long build-up intro.
Philly. Well, unless they give some of the matches longer time, yeah, I agree with you. We're going to have promos and hype throughout the show. It's natural. It's going to happen. So, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from there. Hopefully, they can cut down on that as much as possible and give some of these matches the time that they deserve. That remains to be seen, though. Bohan, what's kind of initial feelings about the card and the show?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, being honest. I mean, I can see plenty of stuff on it that looks like it could have some promise, but the problem with this card is there's good matches in it, undoubtedly, but there's shit I just don't really want to watch, if I'm blunt. Like, I don't really see the point in having another multi-women match. We've had so fucking many of them over the last like year and a half. Who cares? Why would anyone want to watch another at this point? It's getting to the stage where you've done them to death. I mean, with that and Cena Reigns, I'm not really arsed. It sounds bad to say, but I couldn't give less of a fuck about the single basket they've shoved all of their eggs into here. I mean, with the rest of the card, there's like sort of highlights on it. There's stuff I'm going to enjoy seeing, but I've got a feeling that this could really go in either direction. I don't have a lot of faith in this card looking at it, to be honest. I don't feel like it's the worst card they've put together, but I still don't feel it's by any means the best either in the last year. It feels like it's going to be a fairly uneventful show.
Excuse me, I don't think anything major is going to happen really, but we'll see. But if we run down through the matches, I'll just do them numerically at the start from this. I'm not going to pick and choose as they go. But first matchup is on the pre-show. It's Apollo Crews versus Elias. I don't really give a shit who wins that match. Titus Worldwide is okay. I like it with Tozawa, and it's kind of gaining some traction. Maybe we need to see Apollo Crews get a win over Elias, try and give him a bigger push there. Or Elias needs it. Someone's going to go over. Don't really give a shit who it is. Probably I'm going to guess and say Apollo Crews.
Yeah, I mean, very much the same as yourself. I'm not entirely fussed about this. I would quite like see it in NXT. I was so behind Apollo Crews, and I just feel like they've not done him justice when they brought him up to the main roster. He just kind of fell into the background. I'm not particularly fussed. Me and Bohan are both terrible for not watching the pre-show, so we probably won't, as usual. But I mean, I really don't like Elias and the whole coming and sitting in the ring and singing his songs and all that stuff. So, I mean, if I had to pick, it would definitely be Apollo, but I'm not particularly fussed.
Oh joy, the man they have no faith in versus the man that got dragged up from developmental too early. Great. I mean, I'll be fair, Elias Sampson has gotten better lately. He's getting to a point where his matches aren't as unwatchable as they've previously been, but they dragged him up way the fuck too soon. He didn't need to be on the main roster when they put him. What's the point in having a developmental system if you're just going to move guys out of it just cause on a whim, you know? I never felt he was ready. I still don't feel like he's ready. The only hope I have for this match is that it drifts away very, very quickly. I mean, again, like you said, I have a lot of have an innate respect for Big Uha for what it is. He's a very talented man. He's got the ability to do some impressive stuff. He's got a genuinely likable smiling face. He's just someone that should be enjoyed. They don't know how to use him. Nothing's really happened with him. And Elias Sampson, my God, if I could turn that guitar sideways and ram it up his fucking arse, I would. I am so sick of the fucking singing segments and shit. This is not a gimmick that works. Just let it drift away.
Nice punning there from Bohan. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm sick and tired of Elias as well. Next match on my list here is one of the main events. It's Brock Lesnar defending his Universal Championship against Braun Strowman. I'm looking forward to this match. I think if they do it well, it could be the highlight of the show. Two absolute monsters going at it. I think right now, Braun Strowman might still not be quite ready for a main title reign just as of yet. They might be holding off on Braun taking it from Brock. Maybe they'll have a rematch at some point. Maybe WrestleMania, Braun versus Brock, and Braun takes it then. But for now, I think it's going to be a good match. I think it's going to be a close match. I think it's going to see Braun probably working on top, Brock coming from underneath and hitting a fluke F5 or two and taking it from there. But for me, I'd say that Braun's a little bit too not green because he's had some brilliant matches at the moment, but he's just not quite there yet in terms of where WWE wants him to be to take the title just as of now. So I'd say Brock Lesnar's going to win in what could be hopefully the show stealer.
Usually when it comes to these like sort of giant ass mountain of muscle versus giant ass mountain of muscle matches, I don't really have that much excitement. I mean, this is kind of the exception in a lot of respects. If you'd have told me a couple of years ago that I would enjoy Braun Strowman when he was doing like sort of Wyatt family stuff and when he was casting off on his own for the first time, I'd have told you were fucking batshit. I mean, he's really managed to prove me wrong in a lot of respects. He's came into his own. He's worked out what works for him. He's carved his own little niche, and he's doing great.
reckon you're right. I think this could well be match of the night if pulled off correctly. There's always the danger with matches like that, though, with a guy who is relatively punch kicky and a guy who's mostly suplex based offense, of it being sort of 10 minutes of more of the same. If they do it well and there's enough variation in it, it's going to be a great match. I don't know who comes out on top on this. I think you might be right, but there is that small glimmer of like sort of you saw how over with the fans that Braun Strowman is right now. They might stick a belt on him for a bit to counterbalance the shit they're doing on the other fucking side on SmackDown with a champion that no one wants to see with the belt anymore. I mean, Braun Strowman's probably as ready as he's going to be for his first title run, because you've seen before guys get better when they've got the belt quite often when they've got that kind of potential. I think you need to give him the stage for him to let it out. I think he's as ready as he's going to be to take his first stab with the belt. I just don't know if this is them putting him on it, or like putting it on him or not.
No, I don't know. Like I said, I hope I hope Braun wins. I'd like to see him win. I think he's ready. I just don't know if WWE think he's ready. But we'll see. Claire, any thoughts?
I mean, I think I made my thoughts on Brock holding that belt quite clear previously, and I personally, again, am one of those people that likes Braun Strowman. I think he's came on leaps and bounds recently. He's been having some great matches. I'd personally really like to see him have the belt at the minute. I think he could really do something with it. I think he could have a good program with it. I don't know whether they're ready to take it off of Brock. I don't know whether they're ready to put it on Strowman specifically. I definitely agree with you guys with regards to this potentially being the match of the night, depending on how it goes. I do feel like it's one of those kind of toss-up matches. I think it's either going to be super quick and we're all going to be a bit disappointed, or they're going to have a fantastic match together. I hope it's a fantastic match, and I hope Strowman takes it.
Fair enough. Moving on from that, next match is what has been billed as the co-main event, and it's John Cena versus Roman Reigns. For me, it might be unpopular, but I really hope John Cena shuts the fuck up of Roman Reigns. I'm bored of Roman Reigns. It's one of those matches that a lot of the crowd don't want to see, or at least didn't want to see. Then they've had some fantastic promos against each other. John Cena probably coming out on top on most of those. But it would just be nice to see maybe John Cena goes over and it turns Roman Reigns heel. I would love to see if you're going to have him, spouting the shit that he's spouting and having the arrogance that he's got and the cocky demeanor, don't have him coming out glad-handing fans on the way to the ring. Have him as a full-on heel. Have him as a and maybe have him going after John again. I mean, nobody will want to see it again, but that whole thing that John Cena came down, called Roman Reigns out, but Roman Reigns wasn't able to get the job done, could be something that could eat away at Roman Reigns until he gets his rematch that John Cena has to give him. It's one of those things that we're going to get. Probably, I would like to see it happen just to shut Roman Reigns up and turn him full heel. Whether or not WWE want that to happen, I don't know. Probably they're going to have Roman Reigns go over John Cena because John Cena's the part-timer now and doesn't need the wins and the losses as much as they feel Roman Reigns would. But for me, I hope John Cena wins because I'm sick and fucking tired of Roman Reigns.
What's really strange for me is I don't really give a shit about this match. I don't particularly want to see this match. But the thing is, I can't change it. It's booked now, and I have a really, really, as much as I don't give a shit about the match, I really want John to win. It's quite strange. It's booked now. I can't do anything about it, and I would really like Cena just to beat Roman. I'm so sick of him. I think your idea of potentially having Cena beat him and then turning heel off the back of it, great. Please just turn him heel. It might redeem him a little bit. It might not. It might absolutely tank, and I still might absolutely hate him. But at least give it a shot. Maybe I can start liking him as a heel. But right now, I'm sick of seeing him. I could really do with him just not on the product for a good couple of months altogether. Definitely Cena to win this one for me.
This match could honestly take place in a burning arena, fireworks going off, dancing showgirls, you know, like fucking, you could go the whole 9 yards. You could have this contain every fucking pop culture reference that is dear to me, and I still would not give the slightest inkling of a fucking shit. The promo thing's been okay, but like, let's just allow me to just put it like this. John Cena, they love to paint this picture of him as a polarizing figure, and it's unarguable that, you know, he does split the crowd somewhat down the goddamn middle. Except here. When you actually put this out, and people are happy to see the promo off interrupted by the club, and they're cheering for, admittedly, the ones I love, my good brothers. I know they're not everyone's taste, but when you have tried everything you can to get your usual reaction out of putting John Cena in there, and the only thing they're interested in is fuck Roman Reigns, you would think at that point you'd hit the reset button on this booking decision of a program that you've started and just go, fuck it, no, this was a bad idea. Let's just let it fade away. We've done it with enough fucking good storylines before. Why not this one? But no, you've pushed this and you've brought us to this point, and you've continued on your decision and decided that you're going to have this match. Can't expect me to give a fuck about it, though. You really can. It's going to be John Cena hopefully going over. If it's not, it's a big fucking mistake, because the crowd have made very clear that they do not give, again, the slightest inkling of a goddamn shit about Roman Reigns. Whoever thought this was a good idea needs sacked, frankly.
I don't think Vince McMahon can sack himself, though.
Oh, that's
Like everyone else, why not himself for once?
I don't know. But moving on from that, because none of us really give a shit about it. The next match on the list is Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins going up against Cesaro and Sheamus for the World Tag Team Championships. Hopefully this should be a good match. I'm liking the chemistry that Dean and Seth have got back now they're together again. Cesaro and Sheamus have been a fantastic tag team since they've joined forces. They're absolutely brilliant. It's hopefully it should be a good match, and I think it's going to be a good match. I honestly can't see them stripping the titles off of Dean and Seth so early after taking them, because then you're going to have the whole splitting them up, and they're not going to split them up again this soon. So I'd say that obviously they're going to retain the defense from Cesaro and Sheamus.
Yeah, I mean, I really personally like both these teams a lot. I was a bit unsure about them getting Seth and Ambrose back together, but I think actually it was a pretty good decision. I'm with you. I don't see them taking the belts off them this early. I think it's a bit too soon. I think they'll keep them for a bit. Because I think they would go down the split angle if they lost them at this point, and they've split up so many tag teams this year so far. It's been a bit ridiculous. But I think we're going to get a good match out of it. I haven't really seen a match from any of these guys recently that I've not thought was good. So I think the four of them are going to have a really good match together. And I think Seth and Ambrose will keep the belt.
I don't think there's necessarily any harm in the two of them, like sort of losing the belts and not splitting up at this stage for what it's worth. I don't think that has to be the end game on this one. But all things considered, I think it's probably going to be a case of, you know, the Shield 2.0 walking away with the belts again. I think you're right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them giving them the chase for it, but you built this for so long. The crowd wanted to see it so badly. Of course, you're not going to take the belts off them at this point. I'm always happy to see Cesaro and Sheamus. I don't mind this like sort of Shield 2.0 with a shit component cut out. I'm pretty content for this match. They've had good matches so far. It's probably going to turn out quite well.
No, I agree with you. It should be a good match. Like I said, we're all of the same opinion that they're probably going to keep the belts. Moving on, we've got Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt, in which it's not a stipulation, but it is widely known that Finn Balor is not going to be coming out as the demon for this. It's just going to be Finn Balor, clean face, against Bray Wyatt to try and prove a point that he doesn't need the demon to beat Bray Wyatt. So hopefully that is the case. I like I like what's been done with this. We've said many a time that both Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt are Claire's boys. She loves them both. So it's like trying to choose between your favorite children for Claire. For me, I'd like to see Finn Balor win, just to kind of prove that point that, yeah, I don't need the demon. And, you know, maybe have Bray Wyatt move on. It would be interesting if Bray Wyatt does beat Finn Balor to see where this kind of feud carries on, and the fact that Bray Wyatt has proven a point that you need the demon to beat me. Whether or not then that brings Finn Balor to, you know, bring the demon out again, who knows? I honestly can't call this one myself, but I'm edging towards Finn Balor myself.
I think it's quite interesting that they've kind of done the opposite of what we were suggesting, because I think we were suggesting that the last time round he came out without the face paint, and then, you know, he had to bring the face paint out to beat Bray, whereas they've kind of done it the opposite way around, where he's now having to prove that he can do it without bringing the demon out. I quite like that. Obviously leading into a little bit longer storytelling, which is always good. Again, for me, I'm obviously going to enjoy this match. Like you said, I love the two of them. I think they're going to have a good match. They've had good matches already. I don't know who I think's going to win this one. It's a really, really tough. Like last time round, I think I was quite on the Finn side. This time round, I think it's a little bit harder, but I think, like yourself, I'm edging towards Finn winning it. But either way, I think it's going to be a good match, and I'm not really, because I'll be happy either way.
I think it will be Fergal that wins. I don't necessarily think it should be, though. Unlike you guys, I really feel like I would prefer the outcome where he does need the demon to beat to beat Bray Wyatt. Because honestly, what the best part of the storylines that Bray Wyatt has been involved in is that he always brought someone that know they had or that they had. I think this is kind of it, though. Like this is what this storyline is. That it's okay to need the demon. Sometimes it's okay to have to go to that place. It's a lesson in character development as far as like sort of how the rest of his career is going to go. I think you can do a lot more with a Bray Wyatt winning in this scenario than you can do because it's just going to basically be the end of the feud. This one, I'd like him to have to draw the demon out and just accept it. You know what? It's okay. Some people that need 120, 130% of what you're capable of, it's okay to rely on that.
Bohan having technical difficulties there.
I was going to say that was. I did lose you for a second there, so yeah, apologies for the technical issues from Bohan, but the gist of it I do agree with. But no, certainly it's an interesting match, and it's going to be one to see. Moving on, we've got Neville defending his Cruiserweight Championship against Enzo Amore, the newest addition to the 205 Live roster. I'm liking Enzo Amore's kind of shtick right now. I've always enjoyed Enzo on the mic, but the whole thing that he's cheating to win, he's pulling tights, he's poking eyes, he's putting his feet on the ropes, yet he still manages to retain a face. For me, that kind of has that Eddie Guerrero feel about it. That, you know, you, like he said in his promo, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And that was clearly a line from, you know, Eddie Guerrero's entrance music. And it was just nice to see somebody kind of referencing back to that and harkening back to those days. And I'm liking Enzo Amore. You know, he's like, you might be going better than me, but I'm going smarter than you. And it's just nice. Whether or not we see Enzo Amore cheat to beat Neville, I don't know. I'd like to see Neville maybe have a protracted length of time where he doesn't have the belt and he's struggling to work out who he is if he's not the king of the cruiserweights. It would be interesting to see where they go from that. But I don't know if the WWE want to put the belt on Enzo Amore, whether or not they're just happy for him to carry on chasing it. It's another difficult one to call. Like I said, I'm probably edging that Neville retains, but I think it's going to be an interesting match, and I think we're going to see some shenanigans from Amore in trying to win it.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of Enzo. I like Neville as well. I think they can potentially have a really good match. I like that Enzo's moved into the cruiserweights. I think that's where he should be. I don't know if this is like just my heart leading me, but I think Enzo might take it. But I don't know. I think it's quite a difficult one to call. I think I'm going to go with Enzo. I think it's going to be a good match regardless. And I think definitely cruiserweights was the right move for Enzo. And I think what he's been doing at the minute has been really interesting. So always like seeing him, like what he's doing at the minute. Guess we'll just have to wait and see with this one, I think.
How weird is it, by the way, that what has been long speculated to be his punishment for being like sort of a bit of a controversial figure backstage and the issues that he's had is being put in a more appropriate place where he can actually sort of work, you know? Like, they should have done this with him a while ago. I'm not really sure about the outcome of this one, to be honest. I would probably prefer to see Neville keep the belt than for it to go Enzo at the moment. It's not that I don't like his whole Italian-American, I'm from New Jersey, but I'm really Eddie Guerrero deep down shtick. It's just that I just don't necessarily feel like him being on that belt is going to be good for him or the belt right now. I think that you've got to make him earn it at this stage. You've really got to make him earn it in a way that you haven't done yet. You can't just pop into the division a month later. Oh, look, guys, I've got the belt because I tried stuff that no one else was trying. Like, I would feel like it kind of devalues it somewhat. I reckon he'll get it. I just don't think this is the time.
No, I agree with you. Like I said, I don't think they're ready for him to have the belt yet. But like I said, like Claire said, remains to be seen. We'll certainly see what happens tonight, early hours of this morning. Tomorrow morning, sorry. Next match on the card I've got here is the Fatal 5-way match for the Raw Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss defends against Sasha Banks, Bayley, Nia Jax, and Emma. Like I said, it's another multi-women match. That could be good. It could be about a horse shit. We don't honestly know. The women in the ring, they are talented. They all know how to put on a good match. Maybe they'll all get their stuff in and we'll get to see a good multi-women match. But it would be better if we just had one-on-one, maybe a triple threat. These repeated multi-women matches, we just don't need to see all that much. Given the fact that Bayley came back in her hometown, got inserted into the match, something's telling me that Bayley's going to go to win this. I'd like to see Alexa Bliss keep it because I'm enjoying her run as a heel champion. But I'd probably see, given the fact they brought her back in her hometown, and then she got immediately inserted into the match, I'd probably see Bayley going away with this one.
Why are we having a multi-women match? Like, I really, really, really want to enjoy the women's content, but they're making it so goddamn fucking difficult for me. Like, I am sick of this. Fuck it, let's just throw all the women in the ring together. Shit that goes on, like, it's just annoying. I'm not like, they could surprise me. All the women are talented. I think Nia Jax is still pretty green. And it can be quite difficult at times, I think, they just make her look strong, and I think she could go away and do some work and come back as a really good wrestler. But I think they're trying to push her before she's ready still, and that's been the case for quite some time now. Everyone else in that ring is phenomenal wrestler, but because it's a multi-women match, I really don't think it's going to be all that good. I'm sick of seeing them, and I don't know who I think's really going to come out the winner of this one. I like pretty much everyone, and I'm not going to be sad to see anyone win. Maybe apart from Nia, because I think the other women in the ring, you know, work-wise, deserve it more. I think Alexa will maybe keep it. But I think it's a tough one to call, and this is another match on the card that I'm not overly fussed about. I hope they surprise me. I really do. I hope it's a fantastic match, and I really, really enjoy it. But I'm not going into it with a lot of hope. I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than severely disappointed at this one.
I mean, for this match, just looking at it on the card there, as I've got it up on Wikipedia, like, you're talking here that there are 3 people that should hold this belt and 2 people that aren't at a stage where it'd be the right choice. I mean, this is, again, though, why we need a secondary women's belt, like what we kind of talked about briefly with the Mae Young. Like, if you're the secondary women's belt right now, you could take Nia Jax and Emma totally out of this equation, have a match for them for whatever secondary belt you had running. You could have run another feud. You could have cut another match from this card and shoved another women's one in, and you'd have got a better outcome than just sticking 5 women in the ring together where no one really gets their shit in and no one really gets over, because that's what seems to happen far too frequently with these matches. Looking at it and kind of going, yeah, I can see or Bailey walking away with that belt very easily. The other 2, not really convinced, although that is not to say they're not just going to stick it on Nia. They've fucking teased it enough lately. But it doesn't really matter who wins this anyway, because the reality of the matter is whoever wins this belt's fucking dropping it to Asuka pretty goddamn soon if there's any justice in this world. For what it is, I'm not really too fussed about this match. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. I don't have a lot of faith in it because they've done this before and they've not went that well. It's going to be whatever it is. Doesn't really matter who holds that belt at this stage, though. For my mind, they're just a placeholder for Asuka.
No, yeah, I agree with you. Might have a quick little talk about that once we finish running through the card in a minute. But no, I do agree with you about that, about how it's going to be a placeholder for Asuka, probably. Last match we've got on the card here is The Miz going up against Jason Jordan for the Intercontinental Championship. I like Jason Jordan. I like the storyline he's had with Kurt Angle being his biological dad. I just think they might be pushing him a little bit too quickly, a little bit too soon after splitting up from American Alpha. He's a very good wrestler. Yeah, you know, they're building him up as being the as Corey Graves like to say, the gold standard, gold-blooded, given the fact that Kurt Angle is his dad. But I just don't think that he's ready for a belt just at the moment, or a singles belt anyway. So I'd probably say that Miz is going to take this bond, carry on with the belt for now.
I think the split was quite abrupt, and I do like what he's been doing solo-wise, but I think it was quite abrupt. We've not really seen all that much of him as a singles competitor, and I think it would be a bit quick to kind of have him go over the Miz. And I think when you kind of factor in all the Miz Taraj shenanigans that could go on, I think it'll probably be a good match, because both of them are fantastic wrestlers, and I think they could put on a really good match together. But I think Miz is going to take this one.
See, isn't that the point of the Intercontinental belt, though? I mean, isn't the whole point of the Intercontinental belt so that you've got the opportunity to potentially make that mistake without giving someone the big strap? I think that it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them to put it on him. He's a talented enough boy. He's got the ability to go for days. Anytime I've watched him, I've thoroughly enjoyed his output. I think there's the possibility that he might actually walk away with this personally. But it's going to be a good match. You've got 2 guys that can possibly work quite well together. I really enjoy both of them in a lot of ways. I'm going to be happy whatever the outcome on this one is. But personally, I think it's time to stick a belt on him. Give him a run with it, see what happens. If he's not ready, you can can it in a couple of weeks and shove it back on Miz anyway. It's not like we don't expect that with the Intercontinental belt at this point. Take your opportunity, because it's either going to work out great for you or you're just going to press the reset button. But take the chance, see what happens. Personally, is what I reckon they ought to do.
No, I see your point. I'd like Claire said, we haven't seen a lot of him as a singles competitor. I'd like maybe to have seen him a little bit longer, as a singles competitor, just to give us that feeling as to whether he's ready or not. But, like you said, I get your point. They can put it on him. If he's not ready, they can take it back off him again. It's not massively a big deal there. But no, we've run through the card there. So we're going to touch on that. I mean, we've had I'll touch on kind of people coming up and people going. We've had some people coming in after months of speculation that he was there. I mean, he signed, he was injured, and now he's officially there. What have you thought about Shelton Benjamin's return to SmackDown?
I've seen none of it, and I'm kind of sad about that. I'm probably going to try and catch a couple of the matches going back because I'm a big fan of Shelton Benjamin. I'm pretty happy to see him back. I really enjoyed his work in New Japan. I really enjoyed his work with Charlie Haas. I just think that Benjamin's a great talent that's fundamentally been underutilized because they didn't really necessarily see a place for him. It'll be interesting to see. I understand the whole logic of kind of chucking him in there with like sort of not Jason Jordan, Chad Gable. Sorry, I get the whole sort of new generation of like sort of the world's greatest tag team kind of thing that's going on here. We'll see what happens long term, but I'm just happy to see him back. To be honest, I never understood why they let the guy go in the first place.
No, I agree with you. I've been enjoying Shelton Benjamin's return. I like what he's been doing with Chad Gable. They've had some really good matches. It does seem that kind of Shelton Benjamin has kind of taken over where Jason Jordan left off. He's kind of Chad Gable takes most of the heat and then gets the hot tag to Shelton and he finishes out the match and they get the win, much like Jason Jordan was doing when there was American Alpha. So not a lot's changed, but it is nice to see Shelton back in the ring. You mentioned it as well. In the next few weeks, we're going to see Asuka make her Raw debut. I'm excited for that. A little bit trepidatious. I don't know how much of the fact that she's undefeated is going to come over from NXT, whether or not they're going to mention that she's carrying an undefeated streak, and whether or not we're going to keep on that. It would be nice to see that happen. Whether or not they start anew, that they have a fresh streak on her debut, it would be interesting to see. What are your thoughts as to whether or not they're going to keep her NXT streak and how long she's been undefeated for, or whether or not they're going to start a new streak once she's on Raw?
I think they're kind of missing a trick if they don't use it. I mean, it's like I don't know how many. I don't really know what the split is with people who only watch the main roster stuff and people who watch NXT. Obviously, if you watch NXT, you obviously know who she is and you know what's going on and you know that she's undefeated and she dropped the belt and she didn't lose it. If you don't know who she is, I think that really bolsters the character to bring out that she's undefeated and she gave the belt up to come here because no one could defeat her and she was ready to move, sort of thing. I think they should pretty much put the belt on her almost straight away. And I think they should give her a good run with it. I think it's one of those things. We talk about the women's division. We have done quite a lot. And I think you really need to put in a good few new people into that roster at the moment. I'm happy to see her go up to the main roster, but I'm not really sure who they're going to give her other than maybe putting her with Nia because Nia's big and stuff. I think she could convincingly beat any of the women who are currently there because, to be honest, I think she's beat better women down in NXT. I definitely think they should use it, if only to kind of help inform the character for people who haven't seen her on NXT.
I mean, when you look at Asuka or Kana or whatever you want to call her, though, you're talking about someone who has beat better people all over the goddamn world. Like, that is, like, in terms of women's talent, I don't feel like I'm really overstating it to say that Asuka is arguably at this point in time the gold standard. There are other women that maybe come close there and match her and stuff, but I don't really think that there's another single convincing female competitor that looks as good in the ring at this point as Asuka does. I haven't felt like there have been for quite some time. I understood them putting the NXT belt on her pretty early. I'll understand them putting the main women's belt on her pretty early. Just make the most of what you've got. And yeah, like you said, if they don't use that streak, it's pointless to have done it in the first place and have her left like undefeated. It would just, I feel like when you've built someone to that level of mythical status, and you've actually built them, not like WCW with Goldberg, where that streak was inflated by matches and days and shit like that, it would jump 30 a week. Like, you've got someone who is legitimately undefeated in more matches and over a longer period of time than Goldberg's mythical streak. Why wouldn't you use it? Why wouldn't you make the most of that and talk about it? It's a pretty cool talking point and storyline that you built up there. I think they maybe wanted her to go sooner. I reckon they'll use her well. If they don't, it's just going to be tragic, to be honest, because when you've got the ability to really bolster your women's division with that level of legitimacy, with someone who carries that off that well, you'd be a fool not to take it, because everyone's going to look better as a result of it. Leave the belt on her for a little while, maybe let her lose it at Mania or something. But I would put the belt on her and keep it on her for a good conceivable chunk of time until you've got a couple of things ready, like until you feel that you're ready to put Ember Moon up, for example, from NXT to take it off of her and do what she couldn't do at NXT. If you're gonna have this big unified, like sort of, but somehow separate brand setup that you have, what happens in your developmental product needs to mean something on the main roster, whether they're watching it or not, because it's there for them to go and watch. You can draw more eyes to your developmental product that way as well. I mean, the smartest thing you can probably do is make reference to the streak immediately, put the belt on her as quick as you can, have her look like an unstoppable force, because the women's division hasn't really had that, and there's no reason not to have it, and then introduce a secondary title. Let that be the kind of main point of contention, because no one can knock off Asuka for a bit. I see no reason not to do it. I think it could work very well to their advantage. I just really hope that they don't fuck this up on the main roster, because to be honest, to make an arse of an Asuka run at this point, you really would have to put in a conscious effort to try and fuck it up. And their creative aren't above that, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited about her going. I hope they use her well. If they do, it's going to be gold.
I agree with you. If they do, like I say, if they do it well, it's going to be fantastic. Last but no means least, quick touch on what you've been thinking of Red Dragon, Bobby Fish, and Kyle O'Reilly, and Adam Cole, baby, in NXT.
I mean, just anytime I get to see Red Dragon or Adam Cole in general for the last few years has been a joy of mine. I loved them in Ring of Honor. I loved their little stints over at New Japan. Red Dragon were an absolute staple of the junior tag scene that they had, along with the Bucks and along with quite a few teams, Kushida and Alex Shelley. Like it's worked so well over that period of time. Roppongi Vice was the other as well. They're a team that have an innate ability, and I feel very much as a fan of independent wrestling as well as WWE that Trips is probably just watching a lot of the same stuff as me right now and going, what would I like to see? Because, I mean, we had fucking Mustache Mountain versus Red Dragon. I never would have thought in 100 fucking years I'd have seen that match, never mind in a WWE ring. I like what they do with NXT when they bring some of these guys over and give them the opportunity to just be what they are. Adam Cole, baby, will be debuting next week in the ring. I'm going to be quite excited for that. The three of them work well together as a team. It's a nice new thing as well, because the three of them would never have crossed paths in that kind of light and Ring of Honor based on the storylines and allegiances. It's working very well for them. They just need to continue on this path and not fuck it up. It does sometimes, but still.
Yeah, no, I think they've done a really good job of bringing them in. Obviously, anyone who kind of watches independent stuff's going to know who they are. I think they've done a really good job of having them kind of jump people and then having like Mr. Regal tell them off for it and stuff. Like, I think it's been a really good introduction. Making them look strong, kind of giving them the respect they deserve because they're brilliant wrestlers. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I can't wait to see where they go with it.
No, I agree with you. I've been enjoying that. I was watching the most recent NXT last couple of nights ago, and that Mustache Mountain and Red Dragon match was absolutely fantastic. And then just the end of the NXT when you got Adam Cole with his shenanigans, comes in, helps the guys get the win, then carry on the beat down on Mustache Mountain. Drew comes out, makes us say they're walking off, and then Sanity comes out, and that is an absolute. I love Sanity. I mean, they started out as heels. They've made the full circle into faces, and I love Eric Young. I love all of Sanity. It's going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing Sanity versus Red Dragon for the titles, which is inevitably going to happen at some point. That is going to be a fantastic match as well.
It was also a really nice, actions have consequences moment that you don't always see in pro wrestling. Like, It's what heel groups do. They come in, they piss people off, they do what they need to do, anything to get a leg up. But like having Sanity come back out really reinforces that kind of idea. You need to fucking watch your back if you're going to be like this. If you're going to come in and try and set the whole place on fire, there's going to be someone trying to punch you in the goddamn face. So I mean, careful who you piss off.
No,
Yeah, no,
definitely.
I was just going to say I really enjoy Sanity too, and I can't wait to see that match. I'm really looking forward to it.
No, it's going to be good. But no, we've run through kind of some people who've come up. The card for No Mercy. We've done our top 5 baby faces. So I think that's probably a good point as any to close out the evening. So it's good night from me.
Good night from me.
And it's please don't put me in the weasel suit from me. Rest in peace, Bobby.
Rest in peace, Bobby the Brain Heathen. And thanks for our listeners and humanoids alike. And we'll catch you again next time.